But panel interviews is too tough to understand because often we are getting confused. Panel means what? Panel means there are a certain number of people who will be in the interview board as interviewers. They will be asking questions to the candidates or interviewees. So generally, when we think about panel interviews, these things come into our mind. But this is not actually right. For competency based interviews, for structure interviews, even for behavioral interviews, also, there may be a group of interviewers, a certain number of interviewers, 4 interviewers, 5 interviewers, 6 interviewers, 3 interviewers, 2 interviewers. The number can be for also behavioral, structure, and competency based interviews. But in panel interviews, the interviewers should have some qualifications. Especially, panel interviews is used for the senior level employees or top level employees, for the COO, for the CEO, for the CFO, CHRO, or even like the just immediately lower part or level of those employees, like GM level employees, head level employees, something like this. So why this panel interview is basically used? Those leadership roles, those positions or senior level positions should have a common understanding, should have a general understanding of each function of the organization. A CEO should have financial understanding, should have HR understanding, should have marketing understanding, should have supply chain understanding, etc. So when we are going to judge that CEO to hire for our organizations, you need to evaluate him whether he is aligned with every strategy of every function of the organization or not. So to define this, then we basically invite the marketing professional, the finance professional, the accounting professional, the supply chain professional. HR professional is already there because he's conducting or coordinating the interview, so he's already there. So all of these professionals together are going to check the ordinance of the C-suite level employees, top level employees, or any essential level of employees. Then these become panel interview. I think this is clear to you now, right?
Yes.
So for panel interviews, it doesn't mean that there will be 5 more, 4, 6, 7 interviewers, then it becomes panel interview. That doesn't mean that. For panel interview, basically the number of interviewers will be based on their function with some skill and competencies. Those skill and competencies will be judging the candidate's ordinance, the candidate's suitability. That's all. And on the other hand, the most popular or familiar interview techniques are behavioral interviews, structure interviews, and competency based interviews. Behavioral interviews is basically use STAR method. STAR, star. S for situation, T for task, A for action, and R for result. So this is the structure of basically questioning to the candidates. Whenever you are asking something to the candidates, you need to follow this structure: situation, task, action, result. Simply, if we just simplify this, if we ask the candidates by questioning a situational based question, case based question, then this is basically as per the STAR method. For example, you ask a candidate like, tell me about a time when you had to manage a difficult project deadline. How did you handle it? So you have just put a situation, put a case to the candidate, and you now want to know about his or her experience for that case. From your own experience, you are going to tell, you're going to answer to the interviewers. This is behavioral interviews. So in behavioral interviews, we assess how candidates have handled situations in the past based on the belief that past behavior predicts future performance. Your past behavior, your past situation, your past experience, your past handling situations, problem solving attributes, all the things basically you had in your experience basket from your past historical or past organizations, last organizations. These things can be judged based on this kind of question. So this is the basically behavioral techniques, and this is very popular in today's selection process. And structure interviews, this is very traditional concept that for each role, for each position, for each interview, we have a prescribed format, specified questions, questionnaire, and you are going to ask every question from the questionnaire or from the prescribed format or questionnaire to all the candidates. Like you have a recruitment or interviews for finance officer role. So you are going to ask each candidate for the finance officer role against a prescribed questions. You have prescribed 5 questions. Now you are going to ask these 5 questions to all the candidates. This is structured interviews. So in structured interviews, we ensure the consistency and objectivity by asking same questions to every candidates. You're just using a same set of questions. That is basically making easier for the interviewers to have a clear comparative statements of each candidates. This is like a procurement process. Anyway, this is also popular. This is also used in some of the organizations. But nowadays, the popularity of behavioral interviews is growing on. Competency-based interviews is another popular interview techniques. In competency-based interviews, the recruiter basically assess candidates' specific competencies or skills that are required for the role. Definitely, you have a JD. In the JD, through job analysis, you have fixed all the required competencies, skills for the specific role. And now you are hiring, you are recruiting candidates for that role. As you have already aware of the competencies requirement, then you can easily match whether the candidates requirements or skill competencies are matching with your prescribed competency framework or not. In the competency framework, for each job role, the competencies are fixed. The skills are fixed. For this role, these are the skills. For this role, these are the skills. Something like this. For finance officer, these are the skills and competencies. For HR officer, these are the skills and competencies. For supply chain officer, these are the skills and competencies, something like this. So you have all the prescribed competencies. So to just evaluate whether the candidates is holding these competencies or skills or not, you are going to ask competency based question to the candidates. Then it becomes competency based interviews. For example, for a specific position, the competencies are leadership, communication, teamwork, and problem solving. That means you are going to ask the candidates to test to check whether the candidates have or has these skills or not, whether the candidates has leadership skill or not. Like as a recruiter, you have asked a question. Describe a time when you successfully launched a marketing campaign. What steps did you take and what were the results? So by this question, by the responses against these questions from the candidates, you will be able to evaluate with the predefined competency criteria like creativity, strategic thinking, collaboration, etc. As you are hiring a marketing professional, the marketing professional should have these skills and competencies. So in the mapping criteria under this skills and competencies, whole score will be higher. You are going to hire that person for that role. This is competency based interview. So we have discussed 4 interview techniques now today. 1, behavioral interviews. 2, structured interviews. Then competency based interviews and panel interviews. These are the most familiar or popular interview techniques.